First successful insulin treatment of diabetes is made in Toronto, Canada. USS Langley, commissioned by the United States, which was the first Navy aircraft carrier. Lincoln Memorial is dedicated in Washington, D.C. The year is 1922, and this was the first production year for the Rickenbacker. But before getting into all of it, I'm Jay. Welcome to What It's Like, the automotive channel that loves talking about the history of lost and forgotten brands. We also cover the classics, vintage, some exotics. We love the orphan cars, post 4 to 5 videos a week with engine episodes on Wednesday. If that sounds of interest, a channel that you will totally dig, subscribe and hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. I found this Rickenbacker was part of the Old Car Festival, which is a pre-war car show at the Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan, right next to the Henry Ford. All of the cars are before 1932, unmodified, and they drive them around in the streets. Not only that, they're in a period correct town. Lots of people dressed period correct. So it's almost like going back in time for a weekend, which was really great. I honestly can't say enough good things about that car show, and honestly, it's probably my favorite car show this side of the Mississippi. It's honestly what the car hobby should be about. It should be about sharing your rides and experiences with everybody, and that's what that show is. You can experience those cars for what they were. A lot of people will say that those cars are going away, but that's not true. People are still keeping them, and I saw lots of kids, people younger than me, driving cars older than both of us. For those that may have never heard of the Greenfield Village, this is what it is. Henry Ford, you could think whatever you want of the guy, but he saw that what was happening to stuff, it was just getting destroyed and lost to time. So he decided to save a couple things. The village is almost 100 buildings on 200 acres. Most of the buildings are the actual buildings, like the Wright Brothers bicycle shop. Rickenbacker was founded by Byron Everett and Captain Eddie Rickenbacker in Detroit, Michigan. Eddie Rickenbacker was a World War I fighter pilot, but not just a fighter pilot. He was a fighter ace with 26 aerial victories under his belt. The name Ace, Flying Ace, Fighter Ace, or Air Ace was given to a military aviator who shot down 5 or more enemy aircraft during aerial combat. And you have to remember, World War I airplanes, fighter planes looked like this. Aviation was only 10 years old at this point. Being a combat pilot was risky and super dangerous. He was a total badass. He was the most decorated U.S. flying ace of World War I. He was also the recipient of the Medal of Honor. Before the war, Eddie was into racing cars. It's worth mentioning, Eddie had quite the life with his hands in tons of business ventures. We're not going to get into all of it today. He definitely deserves his own episode one day. In October of 1919, Eddie was offered a business venture by billionaire Byron Everett of Everett, Menser, and Flanders to develop a car wearing Rickenbacker's name, because Eddie Rickenbacker was more or less a celebrity at this point. And Byron Everett wanted to use Eddie Rickenbacker's name, or star power as the kids would call it, to sell cars. And to be fair, that was common practice for the automotive brands to do back in the day, frankly. Eddie Rickenbacker designed the car. Ray McNamara did the engineering. Rickenbacker's biggest innovation was the tandem flywheel, which mounted a flywheel at the front and the rear of the engine, and as claimed, reduced vibration. It took 2 years to develop the car, driving at some 100,000 miles before being unveiled at the New York Auto Show. Rickenbacker marketed the car's high quality and mid-price field, like $1,500 to $2,000 range. Slogan, a car worthy of its name. Leo Wood even wrote a song about the Rickenbacker, In My Rickenbacker Car. In 1923, Rickenbacker introduced four-wheel brakes. You have to remember, most cars of the period only had brakes on the rear. They say life is all about timing. Timing release of this innovation wasn't good. It was released mid-year of 1923. It also made the cars costly to build/buy. To make matters worse, Studebaker launched a media attack on Rickenbacker about how unsafe four-wheel brakes are. Just think about that for a second. It sounds completely silly. but still happened nonetheless. 1 year later, in 1924, Chrysler had four-wheel hydraulic brakes and was cheaper than Rickenbacker. Rickenbacker would build cars from 1922 to 1927 and made some 34,500 cars. The reason for Rickenbacker's demise was more than just bankruptcy. Competition, companies like Studebaker with bad press, Chrysler with cheaper four-wheel brakes for less. The car market was changing, and Eddie Rickenbacker, he wasn't really into it. Like, he was, but aviation was always his true love. Around 1923, Eddie's ambition was going after aviation speed records and distant records. Think Charles Lindbergh, Amelia Earhart, instead of focusing on the Rickenbacker car. After Rickenbacker car venture, Eddie started Florida Airways, which could be an episode within itself. The investor list was stunning, to say the least. People like Percy Rockefeller, Richard C. Colt, and Henry Ford, among others. Henry Ford supplied 3 airplanes. Florida Airways did fail, but it was a precursor to what was to come a decade later, Eastern Airlines. Anyway, 1922, Rickenbacker model lineup. You had the 4-passenger coupe, 5-passenger sedan, 5-passenger tourer. Let's talk specs. It rides a wheelbase of 117 inches, price $1,485, which is equivalent to you spending $27,138.91 in the year 2023. Total 1922 Rickenbacker production was 3,700 units. Moving on to engine, only one engine on offer. 218 cubic inch displacement, flathead 6, 3.5 liters. It's good for 58 horsepower, 2,800 RPM, an estimated 110 pound-feet of torque at 1,200 RPM. Bore of 3 1/8 inches and a stroke of 4 3/4 inches, 3 main bearings. This engine features 2 flywheels. So let's talk styling. Just look at how all of this is. This is slightly raised. It has this bead that goes around the fender. Just look at how these fenders are designed.
I know what you do. You'll grab it up. I would love a...
Look how massive these lights are. There's my hand for reference. The radiator shell is painted. Look at this motometer. Check out these wheels. Look at how massive they are. Also, just look at the nuts around the edges. Rickenbacker, nice and proud there in the center, Detroit. Look at how these fenders are designed. Very swoopy. And how this is raised up. Look at these running boards. Beautiful Rickenbacker plaque there. This car has curtains. Look at how the curtains are fitted. You have these little attachment things, and you just turn it to get it off. So check out these door handles and how they're designed. Beautiful wood on the top. This car has a cowl vent. Just look at this interior. Check out this door panel. This is the door handle to get out. This has map pockets and or place to store the canvas pieces. Coming down inside the pedal box. Look at how the clutch and the brake have textures. Steering wheel column goes in between the two. Gas pedal's a gas button. Also notice how flat the floor is. Emergency brake and gear selector. So here's what over the hood view looks like. Apologize the hood's there, but we're never gonna get this chance again. Here's what first person over the hood looks like. On to the button switches and knobs, starting at the steering wheel. Advance and retard for spark advance. Starter, ADJ, which I'm not entirely sure what that does. Ignition, key, headlights. Not sure what the black knob is for. Stewart speedometer with odometer and tripometer, flanked by 2-panel lights. Amp meter, oil pressure, lighter that pulls out of the dash. Above, you have windshield wipers. There is a rear view mirror there. It's very tight in here. Very cozy, but the seat, man, the seat is very comfortable. There isn't a glove box. Coming back here to the rear door. So that's how far open it opens. Just notice all of this. It's all carpeted. It's got a footrest back here. That's all the space you have to get in there. It's more space than this. It's a little bit hard getting in the front seat. Coming to the under the hood section, notice it's a flathead 6. Horn is mounted down here low. It's got an oil can here on the firewall. Starter right next to it. Look at the water pump generator situation. Notice it's chain drive, silent chain, fan in the front. Look at the red flywheel in the front. This engine has a flywheel in the front and a flywheel in the back. Coming to the other side of the engine, cylinder on the firewall is the fuel pump. It runs off a vacuum from the engine and has a diaphragm inside of it. It works similar to, say, a float in a toilet bowl. Steering shaft's right behind it. Just look at how accessible everything is. Updraft carburetor without air filtration. Notice the flywheel is red in the front. Also notice it has a belt that is driven from the crank to the fan, and it has a chain that drives the water pump and generator, which is on the other side. On the positive side, super cool car, which is also super rare. The company in which the car is named, the guy, he should be the most interesting person in the world. You know the guy. Stay thirsty, my friends. Interesting, 2 flywheel concept that never caught on. Against it, parts, information, cars themselves are super hard to find with only 125 known to survive in the world. All right, now it's time for Would You Rather, and these may or may not be in the same price point, but regardless, which one would you rather have? In the first scenario, 1922 Studebaker, or 1922 Rickenbacker, or 1922 Stanley Steamer. I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. Moving on to the second scenario, 1922 Jordan, or 1922 Rickenbacker, or 1922 Cole. Once again, gonna leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. Now it's time for Name That Tune. First person to get both the name of the band and the song title correctly in the comment section will have your comment pinned to the top of it. Also, nobody got Name That Tune from the previous episode. Here is a hint. It is on the 1968 Billboard 100s chart. Anyway, thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. I will be at Hershey this Wednesday, Thursday, and for the car show Friday. So if you'd like to come see me, meet up in person, I'll hang out with anybody that wants to hang out. Just shoot me a message and we'll figure it out from there. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. I really dig what we have here. Thank you for it. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And until next time, toodaloo!